Okay, awesome. Thank you everyone for joining. We're just going to give a few more seconds for people to come on in. All right, well, my name is Colby Klassen. I'm a business support officer here at BusinessLink, and I will be hosting today's webinar. Thank you everyone for joining. Before I introduce our presenter, I would like to begin with a land acknowledgement. We want to acknowledge that in the province of Alberta, we are situated on the traditional territories of Treaties 4, 6, 7, 8, and 10, ancestral homeland of diverse First Nations groups, Métis, and Indigenous people whose ancestors have walked this land since time immemorial, and whose histories, languages, and cultures continue to influence our vibrant community. We pay respect to the Indigenous people of this land, past, present, and future, while recognizing their cultural heritage, beliefs, relationships to the land which we reside. Sorry. With that said, I'd like to now thank you for joining us for our webinar today. Holly Blair will be presenting a series called The Lean Mean Business Machine. There are just a few housekeeping notes. If you'd like to ask a question, you can do so in the Q&A box. There may be questions asked throughout the presentation, and we will answer them at the end. We will not be sharing the slides for this presentation. There will be a recording on our website, usually 2 to 3 business days after. And lastly, the information provided in this session is for general knowledge and should not be taken as professional advice. It is my pleasure to welcome our presenter today, Holly Blair. I'll hand it over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Let me just put my slides up here so we could get going. So good morning. It's great to be with you all today. As Colby said, my name is Holly Blair, and I run a lean consulting company called Engineering Possibilities. And I work with small businesses and entrepreneurs to really create powerful system structures and processes that empower what they're up to and make a difference ultimately for them and for their clients. And so it's been my pleasure to lead this webinar series called The Lean Mean Business Machine this fall. And you're here participating today at session number 2, which is called Rip the Band-Aid Off for Good, a crash course in root cause analysis. So with that, we will go right ahead here. So what we're going to cover today, I'm just going to pull something up here because I forgot to get my presenter view. Give me a little bit better control over the presentation this morning. So what we're going to cover is first an overview of the Lean Mean Business Machine webinar series. We have one more coming up in November. I'm going to cover the second of 3 common process problems, 3 common symptoms of the process problems, and then get into the content today. What is Lean Six Sigma? And then what is root cause analysis? And it can sound a little bit boring, root cause analysis, I won't lie, but I promise there's some really powerful tools in here and things that will really make a difference in your business, and I promise I'll make it fun. Then we'll get into the 3 root cause analysis tools I'm going to cover today, which are called the 5 whys, Fishbone diagrams, and Pareto charts. And then finally, we'll get into what it looks like to actually address and deal with root causes in your business. So the Lean Mean Business Machine webinar series, it's a 3-part series I'm doing with BusinessLink. The first one was back in September. You can find a recording of that session on the BusinessLink website under resources. Today's presentation will also be up there within a couple of days. And then the third one coming up in November is about lean fundamentals, which will cover a variety of lean process improvement tools and how you can use them to take your business to the next level right now. And if you'd like to register for that, same place as you registered for this one. Some of you may already be registered for all 3, but if you need to, there's a link there, businesslink.ca/events, and you can find these webinar series as well as a whole bunch of other resources that BusinessLink has put on. So quickly, just a little bit about me, just to be related here. I'm a chemical engineer by background, went to Queen's, graduated 2007. There was tons of jobs in Alberta at that time for chemical engineers, so I came out west and never looked back. And I've worked in chemical processing, manufacturing, healthcare, and then just kind of business process optimization is where I came to make my home. I created my company, Engineering Possibilities, 3 years ago in 2018 to make a difference for organizations with lean process transformation. I've got a master black belt in Lean Six Sigma, certified in change management, and I'm a certified executive coach as well. And really, it's all in service of working with people to design effective systems and processes that really make a difference for what you're creating. Outside of work, I love skiing, Formula One racing, and I've got a 2-year-old. He's not quite a puppy anymore because he just turned 2, but he's a Cocker Spaniel puppy named Lucas, who's been my little COVID buddy of the last little while. So that's a little bit about me. But really, this webinar is about you and your businesses. So how you want to get the most value from today's session is to listen from a real issue that exists in your business. So it should be not a concept or not some idea or something you're considering, but a real problem that currently exists in your business, in a process that currently exists. So it needs to be something real. It might be a new challenge that your business is experiencing because of the pandemic, or maybe a process or a system that you're open to see something new about. So everyone take a minute and just think about what kind of process do you want to think about, or what kind of problem in your business do you want to deal with? My promise for you today out of the Lean Mean Business Machine series is that you're going to leave this webinar today with new actions that will elevate the performance of your business operations that you can put into practice immediately. So with that, we've got the 3 common symptoms of process problems and how you actually know if your business needs to look at using lean. We covered the first one at the first webinar, and it was running fast and going nowhere. It's like having the experience of being stuck on the hamster wheel of your business and having your business run you instead of the other way around. Now, the second symptom of process problems is called firefighting. Now, this picture is a little bit dramatic, but I love it for that regard because I hope none of us actually ever have a day in our business or a day in our life where we look like this poor person who's standing there in front of the fire, ready to go, but doesn't even seem like they have water ready coming out of their hose. And it can just be a little overwhelming to be feeling like you're the one that's always there to put out all the fires. Now, firefighting is an interesting kind of dynamic when this thing is at play in your business, because firefighting, people who put out hopefully they're not real fires, everyone, but like the proverbial fires, the little things that have to get dealt with throughout the day. When you are the one who is known for dealing with all the problems, solving all the problems, putting out the fires, you look really good. Even if you're not the business owner, maybe you're like the right-hand man of the operation. And the problem with firefighting is that the hero gets rewarded. They look great by saving the day. But ultimately what can start to happen is all that you do in your business is you survive until the next disaster, which might be tomorrow. And when this gets particularly bad, you end up having no time to commit to actually solving your problems or trying to prevent those process problems, especially the systemic ones that keep coming up. And you can also get in trouble when you end up relying on a single resource to manage your operations. So it's a kind of a short-term win type of mentality where it's working as well as it can, but it's not really great, and it's not sustainable over time. So you may be able to hear yourself in that scenario, even if it's not all the time, maybe time to time when things kind of hit the fan. So lean, this is where lean comes in, is to start to deal with these process problems. So lean, if you haven't heard of it, is a continuous improvement methodology focused on increasing customer value, eliminating waste, and streamlining operations. So it's a fancy way of saying there's a whole bunch of lean process improvement tools that work to elevate your customer value, get rid of process waste, and ultimately streamline your process to make it as simple as possible. Then the next part of Lean Six Sigma is Six Sigma. So there's Lean and then there's Six Sigma. And Six Sigma is more of a data-based statistical analysis type of methodology that works to reduce variation in process and eliminate defects. So it works to enable your process to be able to make the same thing the same way every time. And when you put these two things together, Lean and Six Sigma, you get a really powerful method to reduce variation in your process and eliminate waste. So there's a structured set, there's probably about over 50 different tools that you can use. Most of them are all open source as well. So you can like Google these things and find information about how to use them. Some great templates. I've got a bunch of great templates on my website as well. It's been around for quite a while. It really gained steam here after in Japan following World War II, when Japan was rebuilding all their infrastructure, and particularly in the rise of the Japanese auto industry in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And Lean did come from manufacturing, Lean Six Sigma, but it's got applications across many industries all over the world now. So it's always you're going to always find applications in a manufacturing process, whether that's some kind of assembly or production line. But also it's widely used in throughout the world in healthcare, service businesses. I initially learned it in a chemical plant, and then the food and beverage industry, and even hospitality, fabrication. So pretty much you can use it on pretty much anything, including your own house, like how to organize your garage effectively, how to get yourself or your kids ready for school or work in the morning in a fast manner that's really organized and efficient. So one of the reasons I love Lean Six Sigma is that it sounds complicated, but it's actually an incredibly simple set of tools that really drive value and make a difference. So with that, today's webinar is really about root cause analysis. Now, if you look this up on the internet, the definition you'll find is that root cause analysis is a systematic process for identifying the root causes of problems and creating an action plan to address the root causes. Now, most organizations really deal with problems as they come up. People are designed to want to fix things and solve problems. That's just the way we're wired. Now, something that can often happen there is what we call the Band-Aid solutions or the knee-jerk reactions, when there's something that happens and then we have a response to that something. And sometimes it looks like we single out one contributing factor just because it seems obvious or it's convenient, or sometimes it's a politically motivated thing that we can see a way to get rid of or alter. And it can really bring out additional problems for an organization when you don't deal with the real root cause of what's at the source of those problems. So to explain this, we have a little analogy of a tree. So the tree has leaves, and the leaves on the tree are like the symptoms or the outcomes of the problem. And those are the things you can see. Those are the things that are obvious. When there's a problem, it's like there, you can see it, you can get around it, you can see all the things going on. The trunk of the tree is like the problem. And this is what we call the gap in performance relative to the goal. So there's some outcome you're looking to produce, or there's some way your process is meant to operate. And then the leaves, the symptoms of the problem, are how it's not working, all the problems that get in the way, and the things that you get to deal with given that problem. Now, most people don't really move on past the leaves in the trunk. They'll see symptoms and outcomes of the problem, and then there's the problem, and they'll go about managing the symptoms. But what really adds power and makes a difference ultimately is when you look at the root causes of the problem. And the root causes are things that they're underground, in this case with the tree, so you can't immediately see what's actually going on. It's what's not obvious, but it's what's at the source of the problem. So root cause analysis allows organizations, no matter what size you are, to understand your problems and develop effective solutions. You ask questions like, what exactly happened? How did it happen? Why did it happen? And then ultimately, you're looking, once you get down to the real root causes, you can take some actions to prevent that issue from happening again. And I have a quote here from Albert Einstein. It says that the problems that exist in the world cannot be solved by the same level of thinking that created them. And I really like this quote because it's insightful, and it has you get that how you've been operating, how your business has been going, the way that you've been solving problems. Sometimes it's not that you need to keep pedaling harder or somehow figure out how to make it to some future state, but to actually look at what's going on that I'm having this issue, what's behind it, and start to get that next level of thinking to deal with the real root causes of your issues. So the first tool for the root cause analysis is a very simple one. It's called the 5 whys. And I like to joke that it's like the toddler method of problem solving. Because when you have a little one, maybe they're like 2 or 3 years old, and they figured out how to talk now, and now they're super curious about the world around them. And this little being follows you around and just asks you why. And that can get a little bit annoying after a while, but there's something to their curiosity that we can learn from. So the 5 whys is a really simple tool where you ask why something happened. You do that again and again, enough times so that you can identify a probable root cause of a problem or a defect. And it's not always 5 times, it's kind of a guideline. Sometimes you might be able to get to a root cause just after 2 or 3 asking of why, and sometimes you might need 7 or 8. But regardless, whenever you get down to a real root cause, then you can design an action to resolve that issue. So an example here, there's a puddle of water on a shop floor. Why is there a puddle of water on the shop floor? Well, the overhead pipe is leaking. Okay, great. So why is the overhead pipe leaking? Because there's too much water pressure in the pipe. Okay, why is there too much water pressure in the pipe? You notice we keep asking, we don't stop yet. Well, the answer to that one is that the control valve failed and it wasn't inspected. Okay, why wasn't the control valve inspected? Because the control valves aren't on the inspection schedule. So with that one, you start out with a puddle of water on the floor. That there's a failed valve somewhere in the system and that it's leaking water everywhere or causing the leak is not immediately obvious. Sometimes people would see a puddle of water on the shop floor, they might get a mop and a bucket and clean it up, maybe leave the bucket there so they can catch the drips. But when you actually get behind it, you can go back in and solve some of these problems, getting down into what's actually going on in the background that's causing this thing. So from here, in this example, you could design an inspection program to check out those check valves every once in a while, those control valves, make sure they're still working. So with that, I have a quick download I'm going to share with you all. And it's a worksheet for how to do the 5 whys. So you can download this directly from my website. Let me just drop it in the chat here. I need to send it to everyone. So there's the first link. I have a couple of free downloads I'm going to share with you today. But this is a link that you can click. It's a PDF file. You can download it and start to use it in your own businesses and get what happened, work your way back 3, 4, 5 times down to a root cause, and then work out some improvement actions. Now, another application of this, or a story really about the 5 whys, is you can have a bit of fun with this as well. So this is a story about a guy who his car broke down on the side of the highway and he needed to call a tow truck driver to come pick him up. Now, the tow truck driver, he's got a busy day of collecting cars off the side of the road. This is nothing new to him. And he found that his his job was getting a little mundane. So he started to play a game called the 5 Whys with his people that he picks up off the highway. So he stops and picks up this guy and he says, "Hey man, why did your car break down?" And the guy says, "Well, it ran out of gas." He's like, "Oh, well, why did your car run out of gas?" "Well, I forgot to fill it up last night. I didn't fill it up last night." "Well, why didn't you fill up your car last night with gas?" The guy says, "I didn't have any money." "Oh, why didn't you have any money?" "Well, I lost it all at the casino playing poker." So you go from a guy stranded on the side of the road to now we figured out that he's got some kind of gambling problem. And if you get down further and further, you can ultimately get to some root causes, the stuff that's not immediately obvious. And in this case, you got one of two options. One, you can stop the guy from going to the casino so that he has enough money to pay for gas in his car. Or two, you got to teach the guy to play poker so that he doesn't lose all of his money. So you can actually use this and have some fun with it and have some opportunities to really have some critical thinking, some creative thinking, really getting down into what's going on in a business. All right, so then the next tool, the second tool, is similar to the 5 Whys, but a little bit more in depth. And you may have heard of it before. It's called a fishbone diagram. It's also called, if you're in the lean world, you'll hear it called what's called an Ishikawa diagram, which is a nod to the Japanese man who invented it. His name was Ishikawa. And root cause analysis using fishbone diagrams is a really useful tool to identify the root causes and the sources of process problems. So sometimes you have to use your imagination a little bit, but it's called a fishbone diagram because it's meant to look like a fish. So the red triangle at the front is kind of the head of the fish. And that's where you would write the problem or the issue you're experiencing. And then building backwards, you got the spine down the middle. And then each of the orange and yellow and green boxes are like the root causes of the problems that are coming off of the ribs of the fish. So I have a couple more kind of creation examples here about this. So when you do this, the root causes, those ribs of the fish, it helps to group them into categories. So there's 6 categories that are typically used. Materials, which is anything to do with inputs or materials that are used in a process. Equipment, so any problems or issues with equipment that's used in the process. People, so this has to do with people participating in the process or having something to do to influence the process, or sometimes even your customers. Measurements is about how the process is measured and monitored. Procedures are problems and issues that are associated with policies and procedures, any kind of standard work that's associated with the process. And then environment is anything in the physical environment that impacts your process. So it ends up looking something like this, where you've got the problem at the head, the 6 categories of issues, and then you can draw on your root causes and connect them into the different categories so that they all feed down into the problem. And then once you've got that established, you can then go back and validate and check out each problem until you're clear that you've really got the ones that are at the heart of the issue. So with that one, I also have another diagram that I'm going to share with you all, another PDF file you can download and use to deal with the root causes in your problems. So there's another fishbone diagram link you can download. Now the third tool is called a Pareto chart. And some of you guys may have heard of something called the Pareto principle before. It's also called the 80-20 rule. And it states that 80% of the results arise from 20% of the effort. So this 20% effort, this orange section, is actually responsible for 80% of the results. Now, looking at this, it's a really powerful way to identify problems in a process and then go after the biggest problems. Go after the hardest hitters and get the biggest bang for your buck in terms of your effort. So standing in the concept that 80% of the effects come from 20% of the causes, you can build what we call a Pareto diagram. And how this works is, this is an example for reasons for late product deliveries. So what you do is you kind of let the process run for a while, and it depends on the scope of the problem and the scope of the process. So you might need to run it for a day or a week or a month or some appropriate amount of time that would allow you to collect enough sample data. Now, this one was for late product deliveries and the reasons that the products were delivered late. So the main categories here were the product's not ready to ship. Maybe there's traffic delays, the delivery truck breaks down, we've got the wrong address, there's customs delays, or the customer didn't pay for it yet, so we haven't shipped it to them. So this one, say they went and collected data for a month for all of their late deliveries, because they were concerned about the number of late deliveries and the impact that's having on their customers. So what they do is they'll do like a tally. So over the course of a month, every time the product is late, they'll put a check mark or a count for each type of reason why. And then at the end of that, you can put them in order, descending order from highest to lowest frequency. And then you plot them here to here. And then you create what we call this cumulative percentage. So you build up for this product not ready. It consumes about 75 times in a month. So you would take that 75 and divide it by, and add up all of the instances of late deliveries and get a percentage. Then you'll do the same thing for the traffic delays, get a percentage for that, and then cumulatively add it on to the previous one. And do that all the way along so that by the time you get to the end, you're at 100%. Then you do the Pareto analysis. So you come and find the 80% mark, because we've got 80% of the effects come from 20% of the causes. So we want to get into what those are. So standing here, we've got 80% here, and then we're coming down. We know that our top 3 problems and the 80% threshold are things we want to look at are why is the product not ready? What's with our traffic patterns that we're stuck in traffic, and why does our truck keep breaking down? So this can help take you from a whole world of what could be going on, like if you had the fishbone diagram with all of the potential root causes of what's happening. This tool actually allows you to focus in on the ones that are going to make the biggest difference and have the biggest value to your organization. And then from here, you can then start to design some solutions for what's going on that our product's not ready. How do we make sure it's ready on time? Maybe we look at something like our traffic patterns or mapping out our routes to avoid congestion. And something's going on with our delivery truck. It breaks down too often. Maybe we need a new one. Maybe it's time to invest in a new truck. Maybe we just need to find ourselves a good mechanic and actually get to the source of that problem. And then we can look at things like having the wrong address for customers, the customs delays, and why we haven't received payment yet. Those are still problems because they're happening, but they're not the top problem. So after we deal with these ones, maybe we'll go sample again for another month, collect more data, and then figure out what our next shot is for making a difference in our late deliveries. So with that one, Pareto charts allow you to break down your top causes into categories and then narrow your focus so you can actually see what you need to do. And then you might do things like you might do a process map of the top problem. You might find some more data and go find some more information about what's actually going on. So to help you out with that, I have another link here. This one's an Excel file that will help you once you have that tally of how often problems happen to be able to make your own little Pareto chart and identify your top few causes. So if you click that link, it'll give you an Excel file to download, and then you can go from there. So addressing root causes, some additional tools and practices and opportunities I offer out of my consulting business are things like lean business assessments, the lean entrepreneur program, which is a designed for entrepreneurs to have something that's a cost-effective investment for you that actually gives you some tools and tricks that you can use out of the world of Lean Six Sigma to make a difference in your business. I do lean consulting and coaching for projects and implementation workshops. I also have a business playbook offering to help you sort out all of the processes and standard work practices and everything you need in your business to have it run smoothly. And then I also offer these yellow belts certification and online training programs for both yellow belt and green belt certification. And that's a great place to get your feet wet, learn a little bit more about lean, get some practical experience and insight and teachings on how to use the tools. And then the last one there is a lean training and Lego simulation workshop, which is something that's very fun. It's called Chaos Air. It's a Lego simulation exercise, building little airplanes. And that's designed to teach the concepts of lean. It's a airplane production process that really leaves a lot to be desired in terms of efficiency and effectiveness. So it starts out as pure chaos. People cannot figure out how to make the airplanes. The process is all messed up. People can't find the parts they need. The production process is all scattered around the area. There's no flow or logic to it. There's bad work instructions, and I don't let anyone talk to each other to figure out what they need to do. And it's basically pure chaos. And then we go through a series of presentations about different lean tools. You get a great opportunity to apply some of those learnings directly to the Lego simulation, get to reorganize the workspace, organize the warehouse of Lego parts, start to talk to each other and collaborate on what you're doing and how you're going to do it better. And ultimately, in the end, I typically have participants go from the beginning where I gave them 30 minutes to make 30 airplanes, and they made maybe 2, to making 30 airplanes in under 5 minutes by simply applying the lean tools. And the real beauty of that is that people then, they not only become really great at building Lego airplanes, they also can take that directly and use it in their business, in their day-to-day jobs, and in a fun, team building, really effective way to learn about lean. So I think I might have talked a little bit quickly today, but hopefully there's a few questions we can answer. But before we get to that, if you'd like to learn more about Lean Six Sigma, or you want to see like what's possible in your business, I invite you to book a free 30-minute discovery call with me, and we can look at what you want to create, how I can support you. And if you book that by the end of this week, I'm actually going to give you a copy of what I call the 8 Wastes book. It's an ebook, and it helps you to identify process waste in your business and get you started on your lean journey in your business. So if you'd like to participate in that call, there's no obligation. It's just really to see what you're up to and how I can support. You can click on this link here in the chat to book a discovery call. And with that, Colby, what do we have for questions?
Thank you, Holly. There are currently no questions so far. So if anybody has any, be sure to drop them in the Q&A box, and we'll give a few minutes for that, see if there's any questions. Yeah. No questions so far. Oh, we got one question, a couple of questions coming in. Please put your questions in the Q&A box and not the chat one. The first one is from Martin, and it says, how do you know the right RCA tool to use in any situation?
Yeah, great question, Martin. So RCA is root cause analysis for anyone that's not familiar with the language. It really depends on the situation. So these were a couple of kind of higher level, simpler tools to use. But you really want to get to know what's going on in the situation, how complex it is, the number of people involved, how many groups of departments are involved. So you can often start with something like the 5 whys and the fishbone diagram and start to go from there. And then depending on the complexity, there's other tools like failure modes effects analysis, there's cause and effect diagrams, there's cause mapping, and really start to get into those issues. So great places to start is what I covered today with the Pareto chart to focus your efforts. And then really get into a conversation about what is the best opportunity and the best tool to use.
Awesome, thank you. And one more question from Michelle says, can you explain what's in the business playbook creation?
Sure, Michelle. So business playbooks, it's like the operating manual for your business. It's got a place to hold all the procedures, all the processes, process maps, swim lane diagrams, critical documentation, the sources of that. I've actually got a whole other webinar on business playbook creation. So if you're really interested, I'd invite you to book a discovery call with me. We can go through what's available in that. And I think I've got a thing on my website I can put up as well. Let me give you a link to that. Just pull this out of the way there. And that really covers the whole business playbook offering and structure. But it's basically like one-stop shop for everything your people in your business need to do their jobs well. So all the stuff that you spend time searching for, looking up, trying to figure out how to do it, you can get everything you need in one spot. So let me just pull up this link and I'll put it here for you, Michelle. This should answer every question you had about it. I'll put it here in the chat for business playbooks.
Great, thank you, Ollie. And Shelly says, thank you for sharing this information. No more questions at this time that I can see. If there's any more, feel free to ask. Awesome, looks like one more from Alan has come in. 5 whys, how to handle conflict on your team between people who advocate for mitigating a problem versus people who advocate prevention. Depending on the team bias, 5 why, can you go down completely different paths? Example, why did Titanic sink? You can go down a prevent collision path or go down a build a ship better path.
Yes. So Alan, the 5 whys, it can be like opening a can of worms, depending on the context you're operating in. And that's such a simple tool. And there's often more than one root cause going on in a problem. The 5 whys is like really like the place to start and start to open up a brainstorming session for where this happened. But when you get into much more complex situations, like something like why did the Titanic sink, you do want to use a more comprehensive tool like cause mapping or failure modes effects analysis, different things like that, that will kind of capture the larger picture. 5 whys is good for much simpler activities like why is something always late in my business? Why are we always? It's a great place to start from you when you start to recognize a problem. And when you get into something much more complicated, you do need to to step away from that initial tool and then go into something much more comprehensive. And thanks for pointing that out, because it really can take you down many different directions and get you in trouble if you're that's the only tool you're trying to use. You can go off a million directions and then you're more confused than you were when you started.
Awesome, thank you. Any more questions? Feel free to ask. That might be all of the questions, it looks like. All right, so I just want to thank you all for joining us for today's webinar, and thank you, Holly, for presenting. If you would like to contact us at BusinessLink, please email askus@businesslink.ca, or alternatively, you can call us at 1-800-272-9675. The number is on our website as well. If you are looking for one-on-one advice, would like to sign up for our newsletter or connect with us on social media, chat with us online, or view any of the previous recordings, you can do so at businesslink.ca. Finally, you will receive an email following this webinar with a link to an online survey. Please, if you don't mind, take a few minutes to complete the survey. It'll help us make sure that we can continue bringing these recordings for you, or these webinars. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Thank
Take
you,
care.
everyone. Have a great day.